With the appearance of infrared-guided missiles, aircraft are facing a new threat. Unlike radar-guided missiles, infrared guidance seeks targets by detecting their heat radiation using a guidance head, without relying on radar guidance. The warning system installed on the aircraft cannot receive radar or laser signals, therefore cannot provide alerts. By the time the pilot detects the danger, the situation is already quite urgent, leaving the pilot with little time to react. In order to counter the threat of infrared-guided missiles, infrared decoy flares were invented. The way infrared decoy flares work is actually quite simple: they sacrifice themselves to protect the aircraft. Once launched, they burn and generate heat. Early infrared-guided missiles would relentlessly pursue the biggest heat source, so early decoy flares would burn at temperatures of thousands of degrees. If a decoy flare successfully deceives a missile, it can cause the missile to miss its target, effectively protecting the aircraft. Infrared decoy flares are usually released in multiple groups, as a single flare produces too little heat to deceive a missile, or the success rate is too low to be worth the risk. The decoy flare itself is a simple rocket filled with materials such as magnesium that can burn at high temperatures and produce a large amount of high-temperature smoke. However, the decoy flare needs to start burning after it has been launched from the aircraft, as the high temperature could damage the aircraft. Instead of releasing all the flares at once, they are released at very short intervals, creating a larger heat source after they have been launched. In actual combat, infrared-guided missiles generally initiate tailchase attacks. When a fighter jet detects a threat, it immediately deploys decoy flares, pulls up to perform evasive maneuvers, and reduces engine power to minimize its infrared signature. If all goes well, the missile will chase the decoy flares. However, larger aircraft such as bombers, transport planes, and large helicopters are unable to perform similar maneuvers. They can only maneuver as much as possible and try to distance themselves from the decoy flares. Fortunately, larger aircraft can carry more decoy flares, releasing multiple groups at intervals to increase the difficulty of missile identification and improve their survival rate. During the Afghanistan War, the Soviet military was terrified of portable missiles, so they developed a new tactic. When large aircraft took off or landed at a field airstrip, they would release decoy flares in a regular pattern, regardless of whether there were any threats present. This method seemed wasteful and rigid, but it did interfere with the guerrillas' missile targeting. Sometimes, the missiles would immediately hone in on the decoy flares. So, are missiles just going to keep being fooled like this? Designers obviously could not accept this result. First, combination guidance heads emerged. In addition to infrared guidance, missiles also incorporated other guidance modes, as there's always one that suits you. However, combination guidance also means greater complexity and higher cost, so improved infrared guidance heads then appeared. The new infrared guidance devices incorporate a basic knowledge of physics, the spectrum. The principle is that the spectrum generated by the aircraft's kerosene combustion is different from the spectrum produced by the burning of decoy flares. The guidance head only needs to analyze the spectrum, combined with intelligent technology, to distinguish between the decoy flares and the actual aircraft engine exhaust. Decoy flares quickly followed suit and also progressed. By using different filling materials, they could mimic the spectrum wavelength of the aircraft's engine. But you may think that missiles would have no way to counter this? Designers found that no matter how the decoy flares changed, their ultraviolet signals could not mimic the engine, so ultraviolet guidance heads began to be used. As of the current situation, unless groundbreaking weapons such as laser cannons become practical and lightweight, air-to-air and surface-to-air missiles will continue to exist for a long time. As long as aircraft bodies and engines continue to emit heat radiation, infrared guidance heads will exist, and decoy flares will continue to confront them. The battle for dominance on the battlefield will ultimately be decided through actual combat.